Ghostface and Sidney Prescott are back butting heads once again in the latest installment of the Scream franchise. This time, Sidney, once again played by Neve Campbell, is being pursued by what seems to be a living ghost, as it would appear that Matthew Lillard's Stu Macher has returned from the dead and is out to get Sidney's daughter, Tatum Evans, played by Isabel May.
The Scream franchise is my all-time favorite horror movie franchise. I've loved it since I was a little kid. The first Scream came out in 1996 when I was 2 years old, and I do remember watching it for the first time at around 5. I was watching it over and over again, and I've been a horror movie fan ever since. I recently read your favorite scary movie, which I recommend for all Scream fans. The only expectation I had for Scream 7 were those discussed in the book. The book mentioned Matthew Lillard would be back for Scream 7, but Stu as a character was for certain dead. He also mentioned Sidney would finally get her happy ending.
I've seen a lot of other reviewers say things like they finally made a bad one and calling this the worst one in the franchise, but after watching them all back to back with my girlfriend in preparation for this movie, I can safely say, at least for me, that's not the case. While it doesn't reach the highs of the previous two films or the original, this entry is at least better than the lowest points of the franchise for me, mainly Scream 4 and Scream 3, which I found to be dumber and more poorly written. While the film lacks some of the meta-commentary of the previous entries, minus the constant pointing out that Sidney was missed during the last outing, it still delivers some creatively gruesome kills, some of which feel more at home in, say, Friday the 13th than a Scream movie. On the positive sides, one thing that we can say that's great about the movie is the relationship between Sidney and her daughter. They have some great play off each other, Sidney's trying to be an overprotective mother, and it all just kind of blows up in her face throughout the course of the movie. But you still really feel like they are a real mother and daughter, and you really are rooting for them to both make it at the end of the movie.
I think that the best scenes in the movie were the scenes where they were together.
The chase scenes were also very intense, and they were a great watch, especially in the beginning of the movie, which is probably one of the stronger openings for a Scream film.
I think that the beginning of the movie was much closer to what I'm used to seeing in a Scream movie. Had a little bit of the humor of a classic Scream movie that a lot of the rest of the movie was missing.
Where it lacks the filter of a Wes Craven or a Radio Silence, the directors of the previous two Scream movies, Kevin Williamson does do a good job as basically a first-time director. And maybe with proper, and now that he has, got his feet wet and knows what he's doing, perhaps if he does return to direct Scream 8, he can do a little bit of a better job.
Yeah, I believe that he could do even better in the next one if he has a Wes Craven to make the movie with him.
The film is a good bookend to Sidney's story, and I really hope that, as much as I love Neve Campbell, that we don't see her again for a long, long time.
I don't know what they could do with her story after this, to be honest, with the way they ended it and everything.
And now for some negatives. The film lacks the meta-narrative elements that the series is known for. For example, it does nothing with its discussion of AI use throughout the course of the movie, and it really does nothing with it.
Yeah, I expect that if we're gonna bring AI into a movie, that it would have something to say about it, either negatively or positively.
The fan service, while fun, leaves us wanting. It's cool to see characters like Stu pop up again, but all it really is just fan service with little to no substance at all.
Yeah, I believe the return of Matthew Lillard and, without spoiling it, some other people was just for nostalgia. There wasn't really another reason for them to be in the movie.
Courtney Cox's Gale seems wasted here. Hopefully, if they make a Scream 8, it focuses on her and gives her a proper ending too, because I think she earns one as well.
Yeah, Gale came in and had an interesting scene toward the beginning, and then she didn't really have a purpose in the movie after that.
The kills seem more at home with a movie like Friday the 13th or Terrifier rather than Scream. They are pretty gruesome and bloody. Now, of course, Scream is no stranger to gory kills, just look at Scream 4, but these were just a little silly and just a little bit over the top.
Especially if you read your favorite scary movie. They talk a lot in this book about the original vision for Scream was to be very different than a lot of the horror movies in the 80s and early 90s that had so much shock value horror in it. So this one having a lot in there doesn't really make sense to the type of horror that Scream was supposed to be.
A lot of the side characters lack personality, so we don't care when they start getting picked off. They also get picked off way too quickly.
Yeah, I feel like if you look back in all the characters that were friends of Sydney throughout the previous movies, there were always really iconic friends and even lines that they had. There wasn't really any in here. We're not going to remember any of these characters down the line or wish they wouldn't have been killed off.
The returning characters from Scream 5 and 6, not that there's very many, feel wasted here. It seems like they're just here out of obligation than anything else.
Yeah, seeing Chad and Mindy pop up in Scream 7, I was just thinking, why are they even here other than because they were in the last movie?
And some characters that are set up to sort of be like modern day versions of earlier characters don't really get their moments. In particular, one character, Lucas, stands out as he's kind of set up to be the Randy of this movie, but he doesn't really get any Randy moments.
Yeah, usually there's a character in the movie that will get a Randy monologue, and we did not get one at all in this movie, even though Lucas was set up as being a big fan of the Stab movies and of being a horror fan. I by no means dislike Scream 7. I did enjoy some aspects of the story. However, I didn't enjoy the shock value horror. Classic Scream horror isn't centering shock, it's tension and real life fear. We also saw very two-dimensional characters. If we don't care about the characters, what's the point? Why should I care if any of the characters die if I don't really care about them?
Overall, Scream 7 is just okay. It wasn't anything mind-blowing, and if it existed in a world where Scream 5 and Scream 6 didn't exist, I'm sure it would have been received more kindly. I do think it's time to give Sydney the happy ending she's earned, and if they make Scream 8 someday, maybe it can give Gale a proper farewell too, so we can usher in new characters without relying so heavily on nostalgia for the original film. We're going to be giving Scream 7 our nerd video score of a C+. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so that way you don't miss out on any future videos. Also, be sure to check out AlliTheBookGiraffe's blog. Her link tree is in the description below. Until next time, I am AMPEDHERO.
And I'm Allie the Book Giraffe.
And we will see you at the movies.